This week in Academy football, high-flying Air Force was outgunned in a dogfight against Utah State in a back-and-forth game that featured a combined 1,200 yards of offense as an Aggie quarterback tandem put on an aerial assault.
Give them a ton of credit. I thought they were extremely accurate whenever they delivered the ball, and they are quite dynamic.
And at West Point, a slow, methodical, grinded-out offense showed quick strikes are in the arsenal in a commanding win over Connecticut.
It's a lot harder to score when you're doing it 2, 3, 4 yards at a time. If you can hit one for 30 or 40 yards, it's less plays that you can screw up.
And in New London, Connecticut, it was a day of nostalgia and celebrating history for the Coast Guard Bears in a win over Nichols College that showed there is no place like home.
I love the way we played. Anytime you can win in front of a homecoming crowd is special.
And for the Navy midshipmen, will a bye week give them a fresh start as they start conference play this Saturday?
We just need a win. we need a win.
It's on to the next battles for Service Academy football.
Here we go as we roll down the road.
Where will the shrapnel land? There's only one place to find out. This is Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report. Wow, what a weekend for the academies. Dominance for both Army and Coast Guard in convincing fashion. The Air Force Falcons and the Utah State Aggies had a slugfest for the ages, and Navy had a bye week and should be rested and ready to take on Houston. Hello everyone and welcome to Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report. I'm Graham Knight. We'll get to Army, Navy, and Coast Guard in a minute, but we start with Air Force. Both the Falcons and the Aggies came into Falcon Stadium 2-0 on the year. And if you were looking for defense, well, you were watching the wrong game. The lead changed 5 times, and there were more than 1,200 yards of offense combined in Utah State's 49-45 win over Air Force. The Falcons actually had 619 yards of offense, the 9th most in program history, including 437 yards on the ground. But Utah State had 628 yards, the 8th most all-time against the Falcons. 448 of those were through the air.
Credit to them. I mean, I thought, golly, man, they are highly skilled. You just look at, how dynamic they are in the open field.
In fact, Utah State's 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns came on plays of 72 yards and 61 yards to erase an 11-point lead. The porous defense and costly turnovers contributed to the loss. There were 5 lead changes throughout the game, but it came down to an Air Force fumble with 2.5 minutes left that secured the win for the Aggies. To start the game, the Falcons struck first when Micah Davis ran in from 5 yards out for the first of his 2 touchdowns just 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the game. The big play of the drive, a 59-yard Zeke Daniels pass to tight end Kyle Patterson on just the 5th play of the game. The Falcons tacked on a Matthew DePore field goal to make it 10-0, but Utah State took a 13-10 lead on back-to-back touchdown drives. That's when Falcons quarterback Zeke Daniels threw his first touchdown pass of the season to Davis for 56 yards, and the Falcons were back on top, 17-13. Air Force added a 3-yard touchdown to Dane Kinnaman to take a 24-13 lead at halftime. But Utah State scored 3 third-quarter touchdowns to go ahead 34-21. Air Force answered back on the strength of a 55-yard run by a little-used running back, Emmanuel Michel, to lead 38-31 through the end of 3.
I expected, my number to be called today, and I just want to be ready to go.
Falcons quarterback Zeke Daniels added a 39-yard run to give Air Force an 11-point lead, 45-34, with 10:30 left in the 4th. Utah State answered back with 2 touchdowns in a total of 9 plays and went ahead with just 4 minutes left. That's when the Falcons marched down the field, but on a run, Daniels was stripped of the ball by Utah State's leading tackler, Justin Rice, and the Aggies recovered on the 25-yard line. It was Daniels' 2nd turnover of the game.
So running lane, tried to get extra yards, fight for extra yards. The ball just got stripped, got to be tougher with the ball. Nothing too complex about it.
Utah State ran out the clock for the final 2.5 minutes to win by 4. Michel had a breakout day leading the Falcons with 134 yards on 11 carries and 2 touchdowns. Fullback Brad Roberts added 113 yards. Micah Davis had 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. And Daniels, for his part, passed for 182 yards and a touchdown, his first of the season. He also added 97 yards on the ground and 2 scores, but also had an interception in the red zone. Despite the miscues, Calhoun expressed confidence going forward in his junior quarterback. Bright spots on the defensive side of the ball, safety Corbin Taylor had 6 tackles and an interception. Linebacker Vince Sanford led the team with 9 tackles, including 2 quarterback sacks. The loss drops the Falcons to 2-1 on the season, and they know why they lost. For defensive tackle Jordan Jackson, there's motivation going into next week's contest against Florida Atlantic.
I think it's kind of good we have this now. I'd rather have this happen earlier in the season than later in the season. Get us back on track. You win 2 games, you think you're untouchable maybe. So taking this loss now, get on the chin, bounce back next week, and that's the only thing we can do.
And the Florida Atlantic Owls are coming off 2 straight wins. This final note, last week's loss to Utah State was just the 3rd time in program history the Falcons scored 45 points and lost. And now to West Point. Army improved to 3-0 with a big 52-21 win over Connecticut on Saturday. Quarterback Christian Anderson delivered again, leading 5 touchdown drives, throwing for 1 and running for 2 himself. The offense was impressive, racking up nearly 400 yards on the ground. Aaron Summers has the details.
The victory over UConn was impressive, and it wasn't so much that the Black Knights won, but rather how they did it. Planning and preparation led to near-perfect execution. All 6 of Army's first half drives ended in a touchdown, and the defense was pitching a 42-0 shutout at halftime.
Really happy with the way our guys played in the first half. I thought it was a complete game, offense, defense, and special teams. I thought we played really well, getting them off the field. And obviously, when you're winning with a margin like that at halftime, you've played pretty well.
For the season, Army is ranked 2nd in the nation in time of possession, averaging 40 minutes a game. Saturday was no exception, controlling the clock and methodically working down the field. A second-half drive by the Black Knights ate up more than 11 minutes. Army showed some flash, too, striking fast with big plays.
I think the second play of the game, we was able to do that, and it was a big play for us to start the game.
That big play, a 58-yard run by Brandon Walters that led to a touchdown 2 plays later.
Over the offseason, we harped on getting those big plays. That's one of our goals.
Against UConn, the Black Knights had 3 touchdown drives in the first half, all under 2 minutes apiece.
We love a long drive where we eat up a lot of clock and leave their offense off the field. That's kind of the way we play. But in looking at what's going to give us the best chance to turn the drive into points, I think getting a big play or a chunk play really helps.
With a 42-point lead at the break, Monken put in his 2nd and 3rd string for the second half, giving younger players some valuable playing time and experience.
It was a great thing to see, watching them on the sideline and cheering them on, coaching them up when they get back to the sideline. I think that was it really felt good to see them out there.
What that does is give them the confidence and the experience so that if they do have to go into a game when the game's on the line, they're not wide-eyed and white-knuckled. They're comfortable being out there.
Although Monken added the backups are still a work in progress.
What we found out is we got to get a lot better. We got to build depth. We missed tackles. We didn't sustain blocks. We let back-to-back kickoff returns go for touchdowns. That's all very disappointing to me because my standard doesn't drop for a 2nd or 3rd or 4th or whatever string guy.
Graham, it's comments like that that are part of how Jeff Monken keeps his team motivated after a 31-point win. Up next, Army plays Miami of Ohio and the chance to go 4-0 to start the season for the first time since 1996. The Redhawks are coming off a big win themselves, 42-7 over Long Island, bringing their record to 1-2 on the season. Oh, and by the way, for the 2nd week in a row, Army didn't have to punt once.
Thanks, Aaron. That win over UConn moved Army head coach Jeff Monken alone into 3rd all-time in wins at Army with 52, just ahead of Jim Young. Monken now sits behind Charles Daly and the legendary Red Blake in wins at West Point. But he still has a long way to go to catch Blake, who finished up with an incredible 121 wins over his 18 seasons at Army. And now to Navy. For the midshipmen, it was a bye week this past weekend as they prepare to start conference play, looking for their first win of the season against the University of Houston. The Cougars have put up 89 points in 2 victories in the past 2 weeks. Their only loss has been to Big 12 opponent Texas Tech. Diane Roberts had a chance to sit down with Navy Athletics beat writer Bill Wagner to talk about the midshipmen going forward, a series of games Bill Wagner has dubbed a murderer's row. The midshipmen have heavy seas ahead. We'll have Diane's interview with Bill a little later on in the program. And now to New London, Connecticut and Coast Guard. While the Bears hit the field 90 minutes after their brethren at West Point, 140 miles to the west, they certainly seem to be channeling some of that same quick strike karma from the Army Black Knights, scoring 2 long touchdown runs in the first 4 offensive plays of the game in a convincing 33-6 homecoming win over Nichols College. The first touchdown came on the second play from scrimmage as junior running back Jared Coletti scampered for 92 yards for the opening score of the game. And then on their next possession, following a Nichols punt, it was another junior's turn. Running back Spencer McMillan dashed 71 yards on the second play of that drive to make the score 14-0 in the first. McMillan added another 18-yard TD run in the second period to give Coast Guard a 21-zip lead at halftime. And the Bears never looked back, holding Nichols off the scoreboard until the third quarter and cruising to their second win in 3 games. McMillan and Coletti both had 100-yard days. McMillan with 135 yards on 11 carries. That's an average of more than 12 yards per touch. Coletti with 141 yards on 21 carries.
Coach came in with a plan to run the ball, and that's what we did. I got to give all the credit to the O-line, though. They killed it, and you saw what me and Spencer McMillan can do. So me and Spencer kind of like a 1-2 punch, keeping us both fresh.
Bears quarterback Tafari Wall was 12 for 19 and 140 yards. He had 1 TD to DeMazzo Jamie in the 4th period and threw 1 pick. Jamie finished the day with 3 catches for 67 yards to lead the Bears in receiving. On defense, the Bears were stout, creating 3 Bison turnovers, all interceptions, and handing Nichols its first loss of the season.
We got 3 picks, you see 33-6, so I think that makes a huge difference.
2 co-captains, linebacker Michael Palermo and DB Adams Jabril Barnes led Coast Guard's D. Jabril Barnes had 7 tackles and a pick, and Michael Palermo added 10 tackles to his stat line.
We want to put up a goose egg, didn't happen, but I'm just so proud of these guys. So it's really all them. I'm just filling holes and making tackles, just like all of them.
And for Coast Guard, the chance to once again play at home with fans in the stands and with homecoming celebrations, it had special meaning.
We have a great fan base. 50th anniversary, 51st.
Next up for the Bears, another home game, this time against Anna Maria College. The Amcats are coming off a 23-13 win over Massachusetts Maritime, in which quarterback Alex Cohen was named the ECFC Player of the Week. And when we come back, Diane Roberts has a one-on-one with Navy athletic beat writer for the Baltimore Sun and the Capital Gazette, Bill Wagner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. My name is Diane Roberts. Joining me now is Bill Wagner, friend to the show and insider, of course, for Navy football. He is the Navy athletics beat writer for the Baltimore Sun and Capital Gazette newspapers. Many of the people on our staff have listened to one of his 2 podcasts, which is Believe in Navy Football, which he co-hosts with 2 former Navy football players, Keenan Reynolds and Eric Catani. Bill, thanks so much for making time for us.
My pleasure, Diane.
We like to pick your brain because you've covered the team for a long time and you know a lot about them as a beat reporter. You're inside them. First of all, after the 0-2 start, Navy scoring only 10 points, which they're normally more of an offensive team. They can't get anything done in the red zone. When you look at what you've seen the first 2 games, what do you think?
Well, it's just a lot going on. I mean, the encouraging element was that the Navy offense did move the ball against Marshall, and the offensive line looked good in that game. And as you mentioned, 1 for 5 in the red zone was the undoing in that game. So I think there's potential. I mean, Air Force is unique. Army and Air Force know how to play the option. And the biggest thing with those games is that they're going to stack the line of scrimmage if you do not prove that you can throw the ball. And Navy did not do anything to back Air Force off the line of scrimmage. And that's why there was just nothing there.
And as we know, heading into this game against Houston, all anyone wants to talk about is Navy offense. They have failed to score more than 7 points in any of their last 5 games, and they've lost the last 7 straight dating back to last year. And when you think about those numbers, those statistics, it might make some people understand why Athletic Director Gladchuk wanted to fire Ivan Jasper, offensive coordinator for Navy football. Were you surprised by that move when you heard about it? And then were you surprised again when Coach Jasper was reinstated?
Well, first and foremost, to address the first issue, it is very frustrating watching this Navy offense go for so long. This offense has worked like clockwork, and it's execution at a high level. And no opponent's really able to entirely shut down the offense for the most part. So seeing what's happened over the last 2 seasons is frankly dismaying. And I'm not sure what's wrong. I mean, they've got to get back to being Navy football. And I mean, that entails running the triple option the old school way that Paul Johnson, who brought it here from Hawaii originally, the way he invented the offense. So I just think they need to get back to the basics. Now, with regard to the Ivan Jasper situation, there was nothing but, crazy, to be honest. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that. I understand Chuck Gladchuk's frustration. He has been watching an offense that just isn't getting the job done, and he's had it. He's frustrated, and he wants changes. And, I think if you really asked Chet to take a truth serum, he would say that he wished he'd handled it differently. I'm sure, I know Chet, he's a reasonable guy. And I think, if he had gone home and let himself cool off, I think the next day he would have done what ultimately they did. He and Coach Niumatalolo met, discussed the situation. Chet made his points and made it clear that something has to change. We're not going to just go through the season merrily like this. I mean, I think the bottom line is that the offensive staff as a whole, and Coach Niumat is part of that, has to get it together.
Is head coach Ken Niumatalolo on the hot seat, given everything that we've just talked about with Navy offense and the team underperforming in general?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think based off his track record, I don't think if Navy ends up having a losing season, that would be 3 or 4, and that's not a good trend. But there's other issues in play, and number one being that the American Athletic Conference is incredibly competitive, and the schedule Navy's playing is unbelievable, and never in the history of the program has they played a schedule this tough across the board. And I think there's a lot to take into consideration. So I don't know the answer to that, to be honest, but I'm not sure who you're going to get in here that's a better coach than Ken Niumatalolo. And there's no question in my mind that Navy needs to run the option. There's just no other offense that's going to work at this service academy. So, who's going to come in here that knows the option better than Ken Niumatalolo?
Last question in a sentence or less. Can they right the ship against Houston?
It's going to be hard. Houston's good. The game's on the road. But yes, I mean, Navy went there 2 years ago and beat Houston in a high-scoring affair and looked great. So, yes, I think they can. I think they have to.
Bill Wagner, the Navy athletics beat writer for the Baltimore Sun and Capital Gazette newspaper, thank you so much for being with us. More Behind the Lines after this.
Welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Graham Knight. This past Saturday, the Coast Guard Bears debuted a new uniform dedicated to the crew at Station 17. Station 17 was set on Pea Island in North Carolina back in the 1800s. It's an absolutely fascinating story and one we're going to do a much deeper dive into in a future program. For now, we want to set the stage and let you know what Station 17 meant to the Coast Guard and what it meant to the team this past Saturday. I want to talk to you a little bit about Station 17. I didn't realize until after I spoke with you after the game that you gave a pep talk about Station 17, both before the game and after the game. And I'm wondering if you would mind sharing with me a couple of things. One, anything you can share from that talk, and what does Station 17 mean to you?
Well, basically, I don't think a lot of guys knew the story. And so a lot of them, I mean, they look at those uniforms and they were just, happy we got new swag, But I wanted to make sure that the story is not lost in the uniforms. The U.S. Life-Saving Service, Station 17, P. Allen, North Carolina, the graveyard of the Atlantic. Formed in 1871 to ensure safe passage of Americans and international shipping and to save lives in salvage cargo. These 7 men at Station 17 were the first life-saving service in the country to have an all-black crew. Station keeper Richard Etheridge led the crew through rigorous training and held them to the highest standard. They were always ready to make a rescue. Called into action in 1896, these men were tasked with the rescue of a schooner in the middle of a storm. They successfully rescued the passengers aboard the E.S. Newman. 100 years later, the crew was awarded the National Gold Life-Saving Medal for saving all hands aboard the E.S. Newman. Honor, respect, devotion to duty. These men lived out these values every day. This year, we honor their heroics.
All right, there you have it. That's just a quick glimpse into the uniform that's dedicated to the crew from Station 17. In a future broadcast, we're going to bring you a more robust story about the station and about that crew. Just to note, the Coast Guard Bears will be wearing that uniform 4 more times this season. We'll be back with more Behind the Lines right after this. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. As we wrap up the show this week, we want to give a shout out to the 74th anniversary of the establishment of the United States Air Force. 6.5 years later, the Air Force Academy was established, and in 1957, the first Falcons football games were played. Congratulations to Air Force. That's all the time we have. We look forward to seeing you next week right here on Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report.